battle brewing over the Chesapeake Bay and how to clean it up. Now, on one side, you have the Environmental Protection Agency and conservation groups. On the other, major players from the farming and construction industries weighing in. Now, states that aren't even in the Chesapeake Bay watershed are also weighing in.
Well, all the parties involved say they want to reach the same goal, a clean bay, but they have different interpretations of what the law allows. A federal judge ruled on the side of the EPA last fall. Now the group's prepared to return to court this summer. The Chesapeake Bay is well known for its beauty and the delicious seafood it produces.
My wife and I, when we moved here, that was one of the things that attracted us to this area, was being close to the water. And the bay is terrific. But
underneath all of that beauty, the bay is dangerously polluted and has been for decades. The top three culprits: nitrogen, phosphorus, and sediment, the result of sewage and stormwater runoff carrying pollutants from rivers and streams to the bay.
I would pull the boat back into like the Magathie River and drop anchor and swim around, and you'd come out, and if you had any clothing on that was white, you would see the grease scum on it. From the oils floating on the water.
Over the past 30 years, the Environmental Protection Agency and states within the Chesapeake Bay watershed signed several agreements vowing to work together to rehabilitate the bay. But repeatedly, the water quality goals were not met. In May 2009, President Obama intervened and signed an executive order directing the EPA to lead efforts to clean up the bay and come up with a Chesapeake Clean Water Blueprint. Will Baker, president of the nonprofit Chesapeake Bay Foundation, says it's finally a plan that will work.
The plan calls for all of us to do better with sewage treatment, for industries to clean up, for pollution from urban areas and suburban areas to be mitigated, and yes, for the agricultural community to be part of it.
In December 2010, the EPA released the blueprint, which set limits for the maximum amount of pollutants allowed to go into the bay each day. It also set specific pollution reduction requirements for the 6 states in the watershed and Washington, D.C. Every 2 years, the EPA evaluates progress to make sure they're on target to have all of the measures in place by 2025.
It's not a mandate from the federal government, as the detractors assert, but rather the federal government saying to the states, here's what you need to achieve by 2025. You can get there any way you want.
The American Farm Bureau Federation disagrees. The group filed a lawsuit in January 2011, arguing that the blueprint gives the EPA too much authority over what it feels should be state and local decisions on land use and water quality. It also fears the potential impact the EPA set pollutant limits would have on watershed farmers. The National Association of Home Builders and 5 other agriculture groups later joined the suit. Ellen Steen is general counsel for the American Farm Bureau Federation.
The court ruling would say the states have some power left to adjust their plan in the future if they need to. That's all it would be. We want a clean bay, but we want a safety valve if the local pain is too great, and we just don't know that yet.
A federal court judge upheld the EPA's plan in September, but the Farm Bureau appealed the decision, gaining support from attorneys general in 21 states. They fear the federal government could take similar action regarding the cleanup of watersheds in their states.
If EPA can essentially hold a gun to the head of a state and say, you have to achieve this number no matter what the cost, then it could do that. It could do that everywhere. And so the implications are tremendous.
An annual report on the bay's health from the University of Maryland Center for Environmental Science gave the bay a C grade, the same as last year. That's up from a D+ and a C- in previous years. Researchers say certain rivers that feed into the bay are seeing positive improvement due to stormwater runoff reduction strategies put in place and upgrades to sewage treatment plants in those areas. Still, they found rivers that drain mostly agricultural runoff are getting worse.
The good news is the Chesapeake is getting better, but it's still a system dangerously out of balance. We've made real progress, and we can celebrate that, but the challenges that remain are daunting.
Win or lose, Steen says farmers have been and will continue to do their part to reduce pollution in the bay. People who live, work, and play on the bay say everyone loses if we don't do everything we can to protect the area's most precious natural resource.
For the people that live here and come here because of closeness to the water and the beauty of the bay, it would be a disaster for it to not get cleaned up, to go the other direction and get worse instead of better.
Circuit Court of Appeals in Philadelphia will hear arguments in this case in July, with the ruling expected before the end of the year. Meanwhile, a number of major cities, states, conservation groups, and law professors have thrown their support behind the EPA. And just today, the U.S. Department of Agriculture recognized the bay as a critical conservation area. That means the bay is eligible for set-aside funding that can go towards restoring bay health and helping farmers in our region. Both Maryland Senators Ben Cardin and Barbara Mikulski, as well as senators from Virginia and Pennsylvania, applauded the move by the USDA.